Should you choose an unmedicated birth? This is a question that I feel like many pregnant mothers ask themselves. It's a loaded question and there's a lot to it. So today I want to share with you a little bit about what an unmedicated birth would take, and as well as a lot of the benefits that are associated with an unmedicated birth, and the way hormones work in your body, and how your hormones can help you to have an unmedicated birth, and the real benefit and joy that can come from an unmedicated birth. One of the biggest things that I hear mothers say in talking about an unmedicated birth, one of their biggest worries is the pain. Okay, they're worried about the pain and whether or not they can handle it. So I want to share a little insight into pain. We are taught from the very beginning of life that pain is bad. Okay. That belief keeps us safe, right? Don't touch the hot stove, and that knowing that the stove is hot and that you're going to get burnt, it keeps us safe if we stay away from that pain. That pain is bad, and that keeps us alive. Okay, now I want you to understand that pain during childbirth, it's completely different. All right, it's not even the same thing. Okay, this is different pain. It's purposeful pain. It's bringing you your baby. Okay, so your mindset around this pain is completely different than just burning your finger on a hot stove. Okay, now during labor, your body is going to secrete powerful hormones. All right, and that is going to raise your pain tolerance level higher than it has ever been before. Okay, the more you relax, the more you surrender, and the more you allow your body to open up, the less painful your birth is going to be, the more you can sink into it. All right. So unlike a burnt finger or menstrual cramps or a heartbreaking miscarriage, childbirth is bringing you a miracle. Okay. There's purpose to it. There's a reason for it. So your whole mindset changes around pain. Okay. Now, understanding your hormones are going to be the key to understanding the benefits of a natural birth, okay, of a natural labor. Hormones have an effect on our pain, and they're critical to delivery and to the mother-baby connection, all right? So there's four main hormones that we're going to talk about that are impacting your labor and your birth. The first one is oxytocin. Next is beta endorphins, epinephrine and norepinephrine, and prolactin. Okay, now that's a lot of big words, so let's break it down. The first one is oxytocin. It's called the cuddle hormone, or the hormone of love, and it orchestrates birth, and it causes those final powerful uterine contractions that enable you to birth your baby more quickly and easily. It's a pain reliever, and it plays an important role in lovemaking and breastfeeding as well. Okay, now, for most hospitals, when you go in to have your baby, an IV is standard procedure, okay? And having an IV is a life-saving in a medical emergency, but during labor, an IV is going to dilute your hormones, okay? So automatically with an IV, you diluted these pain-relieving hormones that are going to help you, okay? So that's gonna slow down your labor. And because your labor is slowed down, now you're gonna need PIT, synthetic oxytocin, PIT usually, to speed your labor up and to keep you progressing and to keep things going. And then PIT is usually delivered, depending on your nurse and your doula there to help you. PIT will usually be administered in really high doses, which is going to make your contractions happen at a natural level, being a lot more painful than what they would normally be in frequency and intensity. And then because the contractions don't build on one another, and you're not gradually going through birth, then it's going to stress you out, and it's going to stress your baby out. That's why there's so much monitoring. They monitor, hospitals will monitor the heartbeat, hospitals will monitor the movement, hospitals monitor the contractions and all of that, because you're putting synthetic things in and they're not sure exactly how you or your baby are going to respond to it. Okay. So now your chances of having a cesarean have skyrocketed. And I like to call this medical dominoes, okay? It just starts out with one thing, and then one intervention causes another and another and another and another, and then pretty soon you're facing something that you didn't want to face, and you're dealing with something that you didn't want to deal with, okay? Now, psychologically speaking, an induced labor is completely different from a labor that starts on its own, okay? Most likely, after birth, you won't experience the afterbirth high. Your brain won't be flooded with oxytocin or maternal instincts because that's all blocked, right? The lack of oxytocin at the moment of birth, that contributes highly to not only baby blues, but also postpartum depression. Like all of these things are tied back to the synthetic oxytocin and just the unnaturalness that a lot of people can make labor become. All right. Now, when oxytocin is given to you in the form of Pitocin, your uterus will respond by contracting, okay? But because your brain isn't producing the oxytocin, then your brain doesn't even realize that you're in labor. And so then you're less able to cope with the pain, the rigors of contractions, and then you've got to turn to pain medication, okay? So it doesn't progress normally. And you lose all these valuable hormones and endorphins that will naturally fight pain and help labor progress and promote the bonding experience after birth, okay? I had an induction. I was 2 weeks overdue, and there was concern that she was getting too big. And just for the record, she was not too big. She was only 7'2" at 2 weeks overdue. But we scheduled the induction because that's what you do. And so they started me on Pitocin with an IV, and unbeknown to me, the nurse was like cranking up the pit and cranking up the pit. And I was trying to like relax and work with my contractions. And so I had my eyes closed and I was focusing and I was deep breathing and I was not paying attention to what the nurse was doing. And I didn't realize that she was cranking up the pit and cranking up the pit. And then pretty soon they just hit, and they were so intense and so unnatural that I couldn't relax. They were one on top of the other, and I was dying. Felt like I was dying. And it was really, really bad. I was at that point, as I was flipping out, I was able to get him to turn the Pitocin off completely, and then my body just kind of took over and did the contractions on its own, and I was able to kind of like help manage it better. But it got pretty ugly there for a little while. Beautiful baby girl, 7 pounds 2 ounces, one of my smallest babies, yet one of my hardest things I've ever done. Just feeling those unnatural contractions, and it's just unreal. Okay. So that's my little experience. Okay, so first hormone is oxytocin, okay? Second hormone that we're gonna talk about is beta endorphins, and these are the hormones of pleasure and reward, okay? They're a natural painkiller, and they peak when you're pushing, thankfully, and they give you a sense of, if I can do this, I can do anything, okay? After you've given birth, you're like, bring it on. Tackle the world. All right. There is a quote by Marie Anne Bigelow in The Sacred Gift of Childbirth. I love this book. She says, in response to the discomfort of contractions, the woman's brain secretes powerful endorphins, which raise her pain tolerance level higher than it has ever been before. At the moment of birth, the mother's brain releases more oxytocin and endorphins than at any other time in her life. High amounts of endorphins after birth make a mother feel euphoric and ecstatic, similar to how a runner feels after completing a marathon, and the peak of oxytocin floods the mother's brain with feelings of intense love and maternal instincts, okay? Birth is beautifully designed. Everything is with purpose and for a reason, okay? Now, during birth, your baby and your body, they work together, all right? Your baby's natural reflexes will have her extend her legs. Okay, so every time your stomach, you're contracting and you're pushing, then your baby is gonna push off. Their little legs will kick back and kick off. the wall of your uterus with the contractions, okay? So they are helping in the birth process too. It's teamwork, all right? And your baby is wiggling and turning and making every effort to be born, working right alongside you, okay? Teamwork at its finest, all right? Now, when you introduce drugs into the labor, then it's gonna separate that unity that you had with your baby before, okay? It's gonna disempower you to be able to work together. And this is gonna result in a longer, more painful labor, and your chances of a cesarean, they go up, all right? Now, everything that you take as an expecting mother, everything goes straight to your baby. We normally take doses of drugs based on our weight. So how is that going to affect your baby who has such a tiny weight? And why are some mothers so careful during pregnancy about what they take? And then they get into labor and they're like, yep, give me all the drugs. Give me all the drugs. I don't want to feel anything, okay? Epidurals block all the pain, okay? So your beta endorphin levels will drop dramatically, all right? You don't have those beta endorphin levels. A woman with an epidural will have about 20% of the beta endorphin levels compared to a mother with a natural birth. Crazy. Okay. Third, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, these are hormones of stress and excitement. They give you a rush when you like a bungee jump or you go on a roller coaster and you get this big rush, okay? These hormones give mammals the fight or flight response that's crucial to their safety in the wild, right? And to the safety of her baby. If a mammal feels threatened, her hormones will increase, shut her labor down until she can run and find safety someplace else, all right? Someplace else that's safe to give birth. Nature is a very good teacher. With my first pregnancy, I did not feel safe and I was clamped up tighter than tight, and it was very long and a very painful labor. And a lot of times women will not feel safe in hospitals. They sometimes feel observed or monitored. It's an unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar smells. And so that anxiety and that fear makes labor longer and more painful. And it's the stress hormone that hits the bloodstream and it locks the cervix up tight, whereas relaxing allows the cervix to open, okay? So just with my son's birth, if I knew then what I knew now, like I would have chose a more private setting where I felt more safe and more private and more protected during that vulnerable stage. Okay. Lastly, the fourth hormone is prolactin, and prolactin is the hormone of tender mothering. Okay. So these hormone levels are going to increase during pregnancy, preparing you for birth and for the care of your baby. Prolactin gives you the time and the space and the ability to connect. It's associated with breastfeeding and maternal attachment. It moves you to bond with your baby and to feel calm and connected. And like your other hormones, medical interventions are gonna interfere with prolactin, making it difficult for you to feel that strong connection to your baby, okay? Yeah. So let's quickly go through some of the benefits of a natural birth. Natural birth is gonna help you have a shorter labor, improved likelihood that your baby will be in the optimal position for delivery, a decreased risk of needing uncertain interventions like Pitocin, assisted delivery, or a cesarean. Another benefit of natural birth is it's going to give you peace, knowing that your decision is safer for your baby. You'll have a shorter pushing time, most likely, less vaginal tearing, because you'll be pushing instinctively versus like them telling you when to push. You'll be able to be fully present and embrace your baby for the first time. You'll have that huge sense of accomplishment when you're done and that fulfillment. You'll have happiness and satisfaction with your birth experience. You'll feel feelings of empowerment and joy. You'll have a faster recovery after birth. You'll have the ability to bond deeply with your baby, an improved ability to breastfeed immediately and with success, partly because your baby isn't drugged and won't be sleepy from the epidural. You'll also have peace knowing that your decision is safer for your baby. less emotional struggles like postpartum depression, increased understanding of your power and capabilities as a mother and as a woman, and more money in your pocket because anesthesiologists and epidurals are expensive, okay? So freaking amazing benefits. The list is long and detailed. Now, I do not want you to feel guilty if you get in the middle of labor and you're like, okay, I just can't do this. I've got to have an epidural. Do not feel guilty at all because natural unmedicated birth is not for everyone. It's going to take a study on your part. It's going to take work to understand. It's going to take being educated. It's going to take a doula and a supportive spouse and having help and all of the things, okay, to be able to help you through it. But know that the later you get the later you get in labor, like let's say you get to like a 6, you're almost there anyway. You might as well just stick it out. But let's say you get to 6 and you're like, I'm done. I cannot go no further. Then you get an epidural then. Know that you've already come a really long ways and you've already blessed your baby because from 6 to birth, your baby is going to have less epidural in your baby than if you would have gotten it when you were 2 or 3. Does that make sense? So if you can hold off getting the epidural longer, even that is a huge win and very beneficial for you and for your baby. Now, it's been my experience that with mothers, most of the time, no matter what, they will start out like, oh, excited, like I'm feeling the contractions and today's the day, I'm having the baby, and you're like really excited. And then you start to get into this like, oh, this is a lot of work. Like this is like the real deal. And you're like trying to breathe and work with them and there's no smile on your face anymore, right? You're going to work, okay? And about the time you hit the, I can't do this, it's not working, I'm done, I can't handle this, then that's when you're like right at a 10 and ready to start pushing and have your baby. So just hang in there, get the support and help that you need. Having a natural birth is worth every effort. It is super rewarding, but it is not for everyone. So I hope that in talking about this today, it's kind of giving you a better idea of what is going to be required and if it is right for you or not. Either way, I am totally here to support you 100% with whatever you decide, and I'll help you either way, holding your hand and walking with you every step of the way. Let's get together and we can set up a plan for you to be able to have the most satisfying birth.